Schizophrenia is most commonly inherited genetically. Although the likelihood of developing schizophrenia is generally unknown, having an affected family member does increase your chance of developing it. In order for the risk to be increased, genetic changes are combined and varied. These genetic changes are not fully understood despite the significant research being done. Environmental factors also come into play, such as exposure to infections before birth and severe childhood stress. Deletions or duplications of certain chromosomes can cause an increased risk. Specifically, a deletion in chromosome 22 is found responsible for a significant amount of cases of schizophrenia. Other individuals with this deletion, referred to as 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, have heart abnormalities, cleft palates, and immune system trouble. It has been found that 79% of the time, schizophrenia is caused by genetics.
Our SNP chip would include over 1,000 genetic variations, each of which would potentially increase the risk of developing schizophrenia by a small amount. This is because, generally, schizophrenia does not have a few genetic variations that drastically increase the risk of developing the disease. Rather, each variation slightly increases the risk. Both RS14403 and RS7085104 are predictors for increased risk of schizophrenia. On one hand, RS7085104 was found to be the most statistically significant loci to come from a genome-wide association study. RS7085104 alters normal striatal dopamine function, resulting in elevated dopamine synthesis and release capacity. RS14403 was found to be connected to neuronal calcium signaling and suggests a connection between signaling and schizophrenia.
Genetic testing schizophrenia can have many positive and negative effects. Before testing, pediatricians must explain to patients the limits of genetic knowledge and treatments for that test. Learning of a potential harmful gene can do more harm than good, such as discrimination or psychological harm. There is also no reason to test kids for genetic diseases that are only harmful with older age, if there is nothing that can be done to help. Some concerns people might have are what if their genetics will be passed down? What if they can't afford the cure? Or what if there isn't a cure? There is a need for more information and studies on how genetic testing information can affect people. For schizophrenia in particular, there is no major breakthrough cure. Therefore, this should be taken into consideration when deciding whether or not to test for schizophrenia.
Most research into schizophrenia suggests a very strong genetic relationship, and it seems to be one of the most terrible mental disorders. Schizophrenia has a 1% risk of the average human lifetime, but there are 30 different loci that have been associated with schizophrenia. There has been research done trying to figure out which allele variations are high risk and low risk. Research shows that high heritability rates are linked to the etiology of the disease and found that more than half of genetic risk are indexed by common alleles. This was tested by doing a large number of genome-wide association studies. The genome-wide association studies found many high-risk variants, and to create our SNP chip, we can put a number of these specific SNPs into tests to see if a person has these variants. Many of the variations of alleles found in our genome pertaining to schizophrenia only create 0.01 to a little over 1% chance of increased risk. Some allele variants shown that having homozygous allele of AA and heterozygous allele of AG leads to lower risk of having schizophrenia.